Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and I got to play Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment early. There are demos out in the wild, and I found one. I actually played the demo a couple times, and I have a great deal to say on this demo. I have thoughts on the graphics, the performance, I have thoughts on the gameplay and just how in-depth it is, and I have thoughts on the story as well. A few different theories I want to break down today. So, we have a lot to get into this time. Do you find yourself feeling tired, unable to take a good nap during the day from wherever you may be? Then perhaps you are in need of a soft, comfortable sleep mask that blocks out all light. Fortunately, Manta Sleep, the sponsor for today's video, has just that, a quality sleep mask. This sleep mask has super soft, comfy cushions that cover your eyes and block out all light. It's easy to adjust to different sizes, and it feels great to wear, and it's helped me personally fit in just a bit more rest during my days. So if you're looking to improve your sleep and energy, check out the Manta Sleep Mask using the link in the description below with my code SLEEPRESTART. So upon starting the demo, this appears to be the same demo we saw from previews a few weeks back, but when I got to see it for myself, I got to see the game running at a smooth 60 frames per second, and that alone makes for a big difference here. The prior Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity was only running at 30 frames per second, as most games would run on Switch 1, but on Switch 2 we're seeing many Nintendo games, in fact I think all Nintendo games so far at least, running at 60 frames per second, including this one, which at first we weren't getting a lot of 60 FPS footage for, but with recent trailers we have been, and that also includes this demo. So playing the game at a smooth 60 honestly made for a big difference. It is a smoother, more fluid experience, but it's also important for the gameplay because the gameplay is fast-paced combat. There's a lot to do, you can do different dodges and different combos, and so reaction times matter here, so that 60 frames per second certainly is helpful. But in terms of just like the visuals of the environment, we're exploring the depths. It looks very similar to how it looked back on Tears of the Kingdom, and I actually kind of feel like Tears of the Kingdom, the Switch 2 edition, is an overall better looking game, and let's keep in mind that this Warriors game isn't like an open world experience. It's not like you have free access to explore the entire world. No, you're going down certain tunnels or arenas. It's a limited map. Now, I'm not saying the maps are small, but if you see a fence or a wall, there's no way to get past that. And I would say that's fine. If you want to explore the world of Tears of the Kingdom, then you play Tears of the Kingdom. The point of Age of Imprisonment is to have some really cool, fast-paced combat using different characters and getting to know the story that happened way back when. But something else I noticed that was also kind of expected based off my experience of Age of Calamity is that the environment is static. Like, if you're so used to Tears of the Kingdom being able to interact with so much, like you walk through some grass or plants and you see them sway, you're not going to see that here. There are some boxes you might find that you can destroy, which there's at least a little bit of interaction there, but that's kind of like basic interaction we've seen since the 90s, and you do get some items and such. Now, this may come off as me kind of complaining, but I'm just pointing out that if you're expecting this game to look and play exactly like Tears of the Kingdom, then you may be disappointed. That all said, the game still runs well. It still essentially looks like the environments you see from Tears of the Kingdom, so it still looks fairly good. And if you're not looking for an open world experience, which this isn't, but a Warriors game, which are essentially action games, they're beat 'em ups, but with also some cool Zelda story, then you've come to the right place. And playing throughout this demo, I essentially got the feeling that this is basically a follow-up to Age of Calamity, which is what we understand it exactly to be, but I mean so from a gameplay perspective. It was reminding me of Age of Calamity. The systems work very similarly. Now, with a lot of these warrior games that are based off certain series or games, they do try to incorporate a lot of elements to remind you of that series or game. And so there's a lot of Tears of the Kingdom sound effects. We already talked about how the environment looks like Tears of the Kingdom as well, but there's even mechanics on top of that. So something that they are using to mix up the combat here is that they're introducing the Zonai items. And I do feel like this is mixing up the gameplay quite a bit. You press R, you hold R actually, and you are given access to several different abilities that you can press, and they can be using a Zonai item or doing some sort of cool extra special attack. And so I found that when using this in conjunction with a combo chain and doing different dodges and also being able to switch to different characters and also occasionally being able to do some really epic sync attacks, that there's actually a lot to do in terms of the combat here. I felt like there was a fair bit of variety here. And I was actually quite curious to further explore each of these characters here. The characters that were playable were first Princess Zelda, then it opens up to Minoru, and then Rauru. Minoru is interesting because you do see her using different Zonai items, and if you sprint around with her for a little bit, you see her actually riding a Zonai item around, so that's kind of cool. But of the three, at least from what I've played so far, I guess the 20 minutes I played, because I played the demo twice, I think my least favorite of the three is Minoru. Not to say she's bad, but the other two are just way cooler. Princess Zelda, with her new light sword given to her by Rauru, does lead to her being a pretty awesome character. Like, she's throwing around light spells left and right, blasting so many enemies, doing energy beams, light blasts, huge sword swings, and occasionally integrating some recall abilities and some Zonai abilities. There's a lot here that's pretty cool, so Zelda definitely felt awesome. But my favorite character to play was Rauru. Rauru just felt so strong. He has that huge weapon that he's swinging around. He's throwing even more light blasts and energy beams, and he just feels extremely strong. He feels like a badass. So Rauru is being portrayed as a really epic character in this game, which I appreciate, and it also makes sense. Like, outside of Princess Zelda, Rauru seems to be the main character here, and he's basically the person that is the closest to a proper rival or challenge to Ganondorf here. And if you play through Tears of the Kingdom, you know what happens, but it's cool to see just how strong Rauru is. Like, I feel like some people are going to play as Rauru and think, oh, well, this guy's even cooler than Link. Like, they definitely did a great job of portraying Rauru in a very, very interesting way in terms of the gameplay. Zelda as well, Minoru as well. They're all really great, and I think everyone's going to enjoy exploring their different movesets here. There's definitely some interesting things going on. I actually was enjoying messing around with the combat and just being impressed with all the cool attacks and how flashy they were as they were blasting around all these enemies, to the point where I realized that I was running out of time to play the demo, which is why I played it a second time and ran through hordes of enemies, skipped cutscenes, so I could get further into the story of what was going on, because I was hoping I could figure some things out in terms of the story and provide some interesting theories for you. And unfortunately, I don't have anything that's completely mind-blowing. I didn't discover something that completely, changes our perspective on the game. But there are a few interesting things I noticed that could have some pretty big implications. The main one is that they talk about how they are exploring the depths, and it seems that they are looking for sacred sites to help out with Zelda's powers. They also mentioned this would help out Rauru as well, and eventually we do get to a sacred site, and they mention how in this area your cooldown effects are shorter, so essentially they can pull off more special moves more quickly, which is cool. It's a nice representation of the benefits of the sacred site of power from a gameplay perspective. But at this point in the video, I'm more so talking about from a story perspective here. So they're exploring around trying to find more sacred sites of power. They haven't gone this far before, and they are noticing there's a lot more to these ancient ruins than they thought. And they speak on how they have ancestors, and when I say they, I mean Rauru and Minoru, the Zonai, the last Zonai we see. They talk about how they have ancient ancestors, and there's all of these ruins and ancient structures and technology down here in the depths. And so I find this part actually very fascinating, because we're already in a time that's very far into the past. Zelda has gone back in time to the beginning of Hyrule, the founding of the Kingdom of Hyrule, as Nintendo and the Zelda team have told us according to the events of Tears of the Kingdom. I know some people like to argue, oh, it's like a second founding, but there isn't any proof of that, right? So I'm just taking things at face value here. It's a very, very, very long time ago. And so we're in this past that's supposedly an ancient past, the beginning of the Kingdom of Hyrule, and even here, they're talking about how there are ancient ancestors. There's an even more ancient history beforehand. So the history of this world goes way back. That's what they're depicting here, and that's extremely interesting. Like, the way things are being positioned, there's still a great deal of mystery behind the Zonai. We still don't know that much about the Zonai, even though Rauru and Minoru are Zonai. There's still so much more they could really tap into for future story points or mysteries. So from a Zelda theory lore perspective, this is cool stuff. But before going forward, if you've gone this far into the video, let me simply point out that I do have this goal to reach 60,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So if you do find yourself enjoying this video or some of my other videos, I would very much appreciate your support, be it through a subscription, liking the video, commenting, sharing, hyping. It all makes a huge difference. But thank you for watching all this time. Now, I tried to get far enough to see what the ultimate goal was for this level, but I didn't get far enough. I didn't see ultimately what they were trying to get to. Because once I got to one sacred site, they were like, oh, now you have to go to 2 more. That way you can handle different forces at different points at the same time. And at that point, I was just trying to figure out how to send my different characters to different points in the map, which you can do like Hyrule Warriors games. You can sort of plan and strategize different points of interest on the map. That way you can handle different forces at different points at the same time. And it was at that point that the demo ended for me, even when I kind of blitzed through a lot of the areas and the cutscenes. But I do kind of have an assumption that I feel pretty good about that's probably what's going to be happening next. So we understand that there is this mysterious construct that many of us are assuming is somehow tied to Link. We're not exactly sure how, but somehow. It looks very much like him, and there seems like there's likely a connection, and I do speak on some points on this with my prior trailer analysis that came out a couple days ago. But when they first introduced this character a few months ago, they showed this character was deep inside the Zonai ruins in the depths, very much like what we're exploring here. And given how important this character seems to be, I'm going to assume we're going to meet him early on, and this is an early on area to the game. So I would say it's a relatively safe bet that what they're exploring here is ultimately going to lead to them finding this mysterious construct, and then they're going to take it back up to the surface to do more research on it, and then they'll figure out what happens there. That's what I think is likely going to happen, something along those lines at the end of this level. So that's pretty much all of my thoughts on the demo. I will say that I wasn't that excited by the announcement of Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. Like, back in 2023 when Tears of the Kingdom came out, I did talk about how it might make sense for there to be a Warriors game based off the Age of Imprisonment, but after 2023 came and went, after 2024 came and went, and after we got deeper into 2025, once they had announced this during the initial Switch 2 Direct, at that point I was already totally done with the Tears of the Kingdom world and story. So I wasn't actually super excited to see this announcement. I felt like it was too little too late. But as we've gotten more and more trailers, as we've seen the game running at 60 frames per second, as we've seen some of these cool story elements, some of these cool characters like the mysterious construct, my interest in this game has increased. And now after having played the game, I'm reminded of how much I enjoyed the gameplay from Age of Calamity while also enjoying the story. And this time around, it seems like the story is going to be even more interesting. And I do feel like they are mixing up the gameplay a fair bit with the Zonai abilities and just the coolness of these characters and their combos. I feel pretty good about this game, so I'm very eager to pick it up in a few short days. It's coming out on November 6th. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget, you can use my code SLEEPRESTART when checking the link in the description below for the Manta Sleep Mask. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I will see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.